There is a culture of secrecy in government.
There is a government secrecy.
We are sovereign people.
The right to information
is a cornerstone. For democratic. So let me start with telling you what is the cornerstone of our Constitution. I say this humbly because I was involved in making it. The cornerstone of our Constitution is 3 articles. 3 articles. And if you get those articles right, the rest of the Constitution will not give you a problem. We were told before this Constitution that sometimes it is the president who claims to be sovereign, sometimes it's parliament which claims to be sovereign, sometimes it's judges who claim to be sovereign, and even mere government official will claim to be sovereign. We settled that debate once and for all after a referendum, and we adopted the 2010 Constitution. Article 1 of our Constitution says the people are sovereign. The people are sovereign. Not government agencies, not the executive, not the state, not those who work for governors. It is the people who are sovereign. Under that, we clearly say the people may exercise their sovereignty directly or through their democratically elected representatives. I'm quoting. So when we decide to exercise our sovereignty directly by coming to an office of government or commission, the government or commission need to understand that we are exercising our sovereignty. Secondly, second article of our Constitution, the supremacy of the Constitution. The Constitution is supreme. No debate. We're not going to debate about this. The Constitution is supreme. Don't quote to me 1996 Physical Planning Act. That has been superseded by the Constitution. The Constitution, which we call Vision 2010, says any other matter that might have been done in the past is irrelevant if it is not in conformity with this Constitution. Any part, you look at a part and it is not in conformity with the Constitution, throw it out. In the classical sense of the Christian theology, it says it's better to enter into the kingdom of your father without that part. Throw it out. The Constitution does not recognize it. It's null and void. No question. Third article of our Constitution that is critical to our understanding of where we are. Defense of the Constitution. The Constitution creates an obligation and a duty on all of us to defend the Constitution. So any attempt to establish a governance structure otherwise than contemplated by this Constitution, null and void, illegal, throw it out. Why am I saying that? My sister, thank you so much for your admission. There is a culture of secrecy in government. There is a culture. Huh? Unajua culture?
Yes.
Maana ya culture?
Yes.
Bwana we. Utamaduni umekithiri. Culture is structural. Culture is structural. Culture is systemic. So there is a culture of government embedded in their minds in the old system that Kenyans rejected. There is a government secret. What government secret? We are sovereign people. What government secret? So I'll say only 5 things and then sit down. And I'm going to say them very seriously, very deliberately, very consciously. Number one, the architecture of our constitution is such that you will have to look at the provision that we are talking about. People quote Article 35 and say, right to information.
Yeah.
If you take that approach, it's what we call the minimalist approach, and it's the wrong approach. The right to information is a cornerstone for democratic practice. Why is it a cornerstone for democratic practice? Because it aids and facilitates and enables other principles. Let me name some. Can you have freedom of conscience without information? Can you have freedom of media without information? Can you have the most basic one, which we put in Article 10, participation of the people without information? Can an accused person go to court and the Constitution say must be furnished with sufficient detail to answer the accusation? Can they answer an accusation without information? So many people who have come before us have said the cornerstone of any democratic practice is access and freedom of information. Secondly, the values that we have put in our Constitution, including Article 10 of our Constitution, about democratic practice, about accountability, about transparency, all these are intertwined, integrated with the right to information. So, I'm coming to my second point. I said 5 points. My second point is very simple. I would like to have a conversation with the county government and the national government that tells me, based on our interpretation of our mandate on this Constitution, we have set standards for access to information. We have set standards for accountability. We have set standards for transparency. Standards including that if there is a trigger of Article 35, they will say, this must be answered within X hours or minutes or days. So you have standards for different categories of information. Okay? Let me go to my third point, which is, what are we doing to deconstruct this culture of secrecy? This is a colonial culture.
Good.
This is a colonial culture. It's not our culture. It's a colonial culture which we embedded and interpreted and internalized. It was carried out. Every place, and I challenge you to test my theory of this. Every time there is corruption, there is secrecy. Right? Every time there is corruption, there is secrecy. That is why you know why our governments are immune, they have immune challenges when it comes to accessing information. Right? Every time there is a crime, there is secrecy. Mbona anacheka kakangu bwana? Wacheka wewe bwana. Kila kukiwa kuna hatia inafanyika. Every time there is a crime, there is secrecy. Every time there is a conspiracy to commit a crime, there is secrecy. Every time there is a violation of human rights, there is secrecy. So what are we doing, Ombudsman? What are we doing to eradicate, deconstruct, and completely, in the language of Bob Marley, he'll say, utterly destroy this culture of hiding information? My brother Chacha, you're my brother. You're His Excellency is a brother. But what we are doing in this town is not right. True. Absolutely not right and not acceptable. And we will always stick up and speak about these matters. Why? Today we have a back and forth with you. This one I can tell you. When you have and say we are going to have public participation, Public participation is measured by how participatory is that process, the quality of citizens' interaction, but also how important you assign to the views of Kenyans and the people of this town. In those hearings, I did not hear anybody who said, increase the rates. None whatsoever. Nada. Zero. Zilch. Not one. I did not hear anybody say increase the licenses for businesses. Not one. Nada. Zero. Zilch. But they go and they say 150, 200% increase. So we are not asking just for right to information. We are asking for the processes of how you process those views of Kenyans. That is also a right to know. And I finish with my sister of the Ombudsman. Today in Kenya, most of the government commissions are scared. We are the ones who conceptualize and say, let us add the fourth dimension of government. There were only 3 branches of government. And say, let's add the fourth dimension, constitutional commissions and independent officers. And give it a whole chapter. And what responsibility did we give them? We gave them the first and most important responsibility of protecting constitutionalism. Management of constitutionality. And I'm sorry, Dadangu, we are not doing well. Generally speaking, I don't want to single you out. You are alone. I wish we had many. But generally speaking, we are not doing well. And I'll give you an example of another commission so that you don't say I picked on you. We have the National Commission on Human Rights. And we have the National Commission on Human Rights. My sister is representing here. Where do people go to? Where do people go to? The government or the constitutional one or the people's one? We should ask, we should look at the figures. How many people go to this one? How many people go to this one? How many people feel the commissions are holding the government to account? Commission's business was not to facilitate government. It was to hold the county and the national government to account.